Good morning.
How are we all doing today?
Awesome.
Good. Thank you so much for everybody for showing up. I really appreciate seeing a lot of smiling faces in the audience today. My name is Christina Lynn. I am from Aurora, South Dakota, and I am the author of 4 books. I have 13 Miles North, Cecil's Story, I have The Adventures of the Misfit Crew, and last but not least, The Rusty Kitten. The first 3 of my books are part of a series. The series is called The Adventures of Solange. The main character in my book is Solange, and she is based on me. So, those are all basically kind of labeled somewhere between general fiction and young adult fiction. They don't really have an age limit. You can start as young as 13, you can go to whatever age with my books. Rusty Kitten would probably be good for anywhere between ages 3 and like up to 11 would be my suggestion there. So that's my first set of books. The Life of Solange series is what I call clean South Dakota fiction. So basically, any of my books have somewhat of a moral behind the story. There's something that everybody can relate to, and I guess that's the thing I get the most of a kick out of by writing, is writing my own story in some of them. You know, the characters, they can either have a very happy life, or they can have a very miserable life. It all depends on how you want to play it. So The Misfits is kind of my newest book, and it's probably my favorite. The Adventures of the Misfit Crew is about the young versions of each of the adults in 13 Miles North, which was my first book. And it is a series of stories about each one of the characters when they're young, how they meet, their families, and their lives. It's all set in South Dakota, so basically each one of these stories is relatable. I think many of us have a lot of stories in our childhood that we'd like to remember and write down. That was kind of the point of actually doing The Adventures of the Misfit Crew. Now, 13 Miles and Cecil's Story are more real-life relationship drama. For me, I wrote 13 Miles North as kind of a healing experience. There's a point in my life where I went through a divorce, the loss of the farm that I lived on, and also the loss of my very best friend in the world when she died of stage 4 ovarian cancer. So after that, I was just kind of what one would call a shell of a person for a little bit, trying to heal from it, trying to move on. I had always had a flair for writing, but as I got older, real life kind of took over, the responsibilities of adulthood. And as probably many of us know, when you get real life adult responsibilities, the creativity kind of starts to feel like it's zapped from your body, because all you can think about is, how are we gonna afford the bills? What are we gonna do this month? You know, that type of thing. So, long story short on that, after the divorce, I met my current husband, and he basically said to me, you know, you were really good at this. Why did you ever stop? And he said, you know, it might help you if you write some of this down. So that's what I did, and that's how 13 Miles North came into being. Now, it is a fiction. It is based on real life people and real life events, but it's definitely a fiction. Basically, long story short, the couple finds an acreage they think is their dream place. They get married out there, and then strange things start happening. So 13 Mile Farm, although it is their dream, it becomes their nightmare in the end. It does have a happy ending though, if that helps anybody. Now, Cecil's Story is basically the beginnings of 13 Miles Farm. It explains why the strange events that happen on 13 Miles Farm basically got created. So that's kind of Cecil's Story. So those are my 3 adult books that I have. The Rusty Kitten, not least but last, is a Christian children's book. It's about a little kitten that's made a little bit different. She gets a little bit of extra spice sprinkled on her when she's being created in heaven, you see, which makes her a special kind of naughty kitten. And she escapes the workshop in heaven, and when she does, she gets rained on. But she still has primer on, and we all know what happens when primer gets, wet. It gets rusty, if you leave it alone. So Rusty the kitten feels like she's a little different, because she's now a black cat with orange spots, and you just don't see that often in heaven, I tell you. So God comes and rescues her. He picks her up, brings her back to the workshop. They say, well, we'll try to fix your paint, but inevitably the pain can't be fixed, of course. Of course, if it was able to be fixed, the story would be ruined. So, Rusty the kitten is told, you're perfect just the way you are. There was a reason for this. God sends her down to earth, and then she finds her perfect, happily ever after home. So that's the Rusty kitten. Now, upcoming in my story series, I have basically another children's book. It's called Welcome to Pickle Pet Rescue, and it's about a couple that just has animals that keep kind of appearing. And eventually they have so many animals, they just start rolling out of the house, you see. So they have to get a bigger place, and they end up on an acreage. And they start an actual pet rescue. Because what's more logical than when pets keep appearing that need to be rescued and saved than to start a pet rescue, right? And then my newest adult one is my first stab at a romance, which was very, very scary, but I think it turned out okay. And the title of that one is Second Chance in One Horse. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is about a fresh start for the characters in Life is Launch series. And in this one, they move to Wyoming. And everything in their lives changes, literally everything. And it's just basically an upheaval of everything. The lesson behind that one is to teach everybody who reads it that, just because things are going bad in your life and there's a bunch of changes, that does not mean that life is going bad. Something good can come out of it. So that's those. Now on to why I write. I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the story, but you can create any world that you want as you want it, whether that's good or that's bad. Depending on if you like your character or not, you can make their lives very, very happy or very, very miserable. And I tell you what, sometimes it's fun to make their lives very, very miserable. All depends on what you feel like doing. Usually I write life as I wish it could have been. As I mentioned earlier, my best friend Melissa is my inspiration for writing. She died when she was 35 of stage 4 ovarian cancer. Now, if you read my books, the second female main character in the books is Celeste. And Celeste is Melissa. And by writing these books, I can keep her memory alive. I can honor her. So doing that is one of the things that's most important to me with my writing. Also in my other adult book, The Adventures of Misfit Crew, there's a lot of my relatives, people that aren't necessarily with us anymore. And these are folks that shaped me as an adult as I grew up. What I've done with that book is taken many of the memories of things that really stick with you through life, the lessons you learn, the people who shape you. And I've brought them either back to life or kept the memory of the younger versions of them alive. And that's why that is my favorite of the books so far. And that to me is the real joy of writing, is being able to keep these folks alive. So basically, creating alternate realities if you want to, making things be how you think they should have been, and also keeping folks and memories alive. Now, I also rewrite life in some of these stories. In 13 Miles North, the character that is Celeste is throughout the entire series. It is mentioned in 13 Miles North that she did have cancer. However, she makes a recovery and is in remission by the end of the book, and she is a character throughout the rest of the books. This is also kind of the beginning of where I write my own story as I hoped or wished it could be. And by Second Chance in One Horse, the main characters are all in Wyoming, where, well, let's face it, I wish I could be. And the real person probably isn't exactly like me, but she's a lot like me. And she has an author career. You see, that's how they end up moving to One Horse, is the main character basically gets kind of a job out there and they move to Wyoming. That's part of the start of their second chance. Also, I like to explain things that I couldn't explain in real life, and that helps me to write past the hurt. That's one of the main things I like people to know about my books, is if you've been in a similar situation, it helps to write it out. I try to encourage folks that want to actually write for a living to do so. I'm like literally living proof that if you have an idea, if you write it down, it is possible to make it as an author. I mean, you're probably not gonna make a career of it, let's call it what it is. We all know as authors, it's not the highest paying gig in the world. But it is something that's very, very satisfying. So my writing has helped me to heal, it's relatable for others, and it's something that is uniquely mine. It is a special and unique gift. I never played any sports. I never really had any particular talents that stuck out growing up, and I never really quite fit in. So, this is the one thing that's really set me apart in life, is my writing career. It's something that's uniquely me, something I can be noticed for, something I can continue doing, and that's another big joy for me. It's just something that people might say, hey, that's Christina Lynn, I know her, you know? I write to teach myself the craft and improve a skill that I already have. I enjoy seeing the differences that have evolved in my writing as I've gotten between my first book and now what's gonna be book number 6 by the time everything is all put out. Also doing speeches like this. I tell you what, last year when I did my speech here, I was so terrified I could barely speak. Now I'm comfortable-ish. I love seeing the change that others see when they read my books. If you look at my first book and you look at my second book, and then you hold it up to the third book, the first book and the second book combined are about the same width as the third book. And now the fourth adult book is even bigger than all of them. So, I mean, it's nice to see the changes. It's nice to see other people noticing the changes. Doing craft shows and author events has improved my confidence. I'm not the most confident person in the world. It's probably a little hard to tell right now, but I'm pretty introverted. So doing stuff like this, being out, speaking to people, and having people come up and talk to me. I want your signature. I want your picture. That kind of thing. I've never met a real author before. That's a confidence boost. I love meeting other authors and chatting with them and learning from them. That's something else really cool. Because I myself, prior to doing this, had never met a real author before either. And to find out, they're just real people, just like you and I. That's one of the neatest things. To get a real signature on a physical book, to talk to the person who had the creativity to write it, that's something special. This has always been a dream of mine, and now it's a dream that's come true. I, like some of the other authors who've already spoken, had teachers who encouraged me to go ahead and get published when I was really young, my sophomore year specifically. And again, like others, I was not brave enough to do so, not even close. No confidence and no drive. But now as an adult, with real life things to write about, I finally had the confidence to do it. And I tell you what, it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Like I said, no, you're not gonna get rich. Yes, it's a lot of work, but is it worth every moment? Absolutely. It's about being heard for me. I love doing events where I get to speak, where people are interested in what I have to say, where it's about sharing my information, what I do, why I do it. Can you do the same thing? Yes, you can. You have to put your mind to it and do it. It's about inspiring for me. It's not just about what I have done, it's about telling you, if you want to, you can do it too. It only takes one right person finding your work for it to get discovered. And that to me is the real dream. And that's the thing that I focus on at each and every event. Somebody you don't even know is that right person can walk up to you and be talking to you. And without even knowing it, you could, impress that person, and boom, everything takes off for you in the right direction. So that's another thing I like to tell people is, when you're doing events like this, when you're speaking, it doesn't matter if you don't feel confident, you exude that confidence anyways. You tell them what your book's about. You tell them why you did it. You're proud of it. And that's what's gonna get you the furthest. In closing, the joy of writing for me is many things. It's healing, it's purpose, it's preservation, it's inspiration, it's self-improvement, and most of all, it's who I am now. I am author Christina Lynn. If you don't know my name yet, you will. Any questions?